Let me introduce Beth. Reiki master, Reiki teacher. She is the founder of Spirit Wolf Energetics and wow, animal Reiki master. One of the things that I always push her to talk about, and I don't know where the title is, but she helps teach how she helps animals that have gone through distress. So whether there's been a fire or a first aid situation or like a, hurricane or a tornado where, animals that are displaced are in stress. And that's what this woman does. What a way to end off a soulful September experience, right? So USIV Holy Fire 3 Reiki Master. Did I get that right? Did I get that right? And her topic today has been, have you ever been kissed by a wolf? Well, clearly she probably has, but I don't know anyone else in the room. And the odd thing about Beth that you may not know is that she likes cinnamon more than chocolate. The gasps in the room. And of course, she loves the Eagles. That makes perfect sense once you get to know her. So Beth, welcome to the Stand Up, Speak Up, and Show Up Summit.
Thank you, Deb, so much. Can you hear me okay? This is my first time with tech, and I want to make sure it's all good.
We can hear you. And if you can't hear, turn it up. Turn it up. So you've got some wonderful gifts that you're going to give, but we decided to do this a little interview style because not everybody understands Reiki. Not everyone understands animal Reiki. Some people will be like, yeah, what? Animal Reiki. And so we thought we'd have some really great just have a great conversation about that, right? And so a lot of people might go, might make sense. Oh, how did you become a police officer? How did you become a minister? How did you get into search? But how does one decide that they were going to do animal Reiki? Like, what was that journey?
It was a very long journey, lifelong journey. And I think it actually started when I was young. My parents had a home movie of me as a toddler waddling over to the neighbor's fence to love on their dogs for however long I could until I got called back in. So I've always had that love for animals. And when I was young, when you're in school, they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And for me, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to help animals. So, it just, life takes twists and turns, and I realized that really wasn't going to work for me, but I still wanted to help in my own way. So, the big challenge for me was when I became an adult, the greatest desire of my heart was to be a mom. And so first marriage, I got married in my mid-20s, and we tried for years. We went through the testing, and unexplained infertility is the answer that we got back. And that kind of threw me for a loop because, here's your life dream. That's a no. Okay, now what do you do? So unfortunately, all of the stress from this took a toll on my marriage. And so on a beautiful September day in 1997, I walked out of the courthouse, a newly divorced woman with a horrific headache and a broken heart. And so on the drive home, I ran into a friend who was out walking. We stopped to chat, and he noticed that I was in pain, said, oh, are you familiar with Reiki? Let's have, I'll give you a complimentary session right now. How much time do you have? So I said, yes. Went back to his house. We did about 30 minutes. And at that point in my life, it was the most relaxed and peaceful I've ever been. And so I went home, and within 2 hours, that headache was completely gone without taking any medication. And so I called my friend and I said, I want to know more. Sign me up. Took my first Reiki class, and I was hooked. So I went through all the levels of Reiki training. I used it to help family, friends, my animals, and eventually started offering it in my community. Some of my challenges in life, I was very shy as a kid, pretty introverted. I was pretty invisible. So And I had this, this low self-esteem, low confidence. So whenever I got feeling down, I always go back to my grandmother, because I remember I can still see her sitting in my living room. And I had just finished doing Reiki on both of her arthritic knees. And she opened her eyes and she looked at me and said, Beth, you have to do this. You have to do this for people. So I said, okay, I will. You always do what grandmother says. So a couple of years later, I got remarried. And one of my dogs developed the skin issue that was pretty bad. And so I started looking for holistic options to help her. And I found Dr. Pamela Fisher, a holistic veterinarian who not only healed her skin issue, but my dog was thriving. She had more energy. And so I took the rest of my animals to her. I became a very good client. A few years later, she called me out of the blue and said, I have an opening in my office. You're the first person I thought of. How would you like to come work with me? And I said, yes, absolutely. Yes. I didn't even ask her if she was going to pay me or how much. I just said yes, because the experience alone would have been priceless. So I was blessed to be able to work with her for several years and expanded my skill set. I learned healing touch for animals techniques. I learned craniosacral therapy, color therapy, so many energetic and vibrational therapies that are just wonderful. So, Dr. Fisher was instrumental in getting me on this path of animal Reiki, because she showed me how to take the skill set of Reiki and transfer that over into animals in a new way. So I found my soul's work, and this energy healing for animals, it lights me up. It's my passion. All the love and nurturing that I wanted to give a child was now channeled into my work with animals. And so, I've just been doing it ever since. I'm now in Colorado, and my second marriage ended last year. And so I moved to Durango knowing one person, and made the decision to live the life of my dreams. I'm going to create this. I have a rock star business coach who is helping me with my Reiki business. And I am falling more in love with my life every single day, because I'm using Reiki to continue to heal and grow myself, but to also positively impact the world around me by helping others on their healing path as well. So it's been quite a journey, but I'm so happy to be here.
Wow, thank you so much. What an amazing journey. And I just heard the words saying yes. So can you tell us an interesting story? I'm always, please do share some of the animals, because I think when we think of, animal Reiki, we think of dogs. And if you know her business is called Wolves, and you're going to have to talk about, being kissed by a wolf and what have you. But what are some of the animals that you have worked on? And I know, like, you've even been able to do this through Zoom, because when we were talking about it, I was like, you did what? Like you sent giraffe or something? Like, we always think of cats or dogs by nature, right? So please share, expand on that.
So, I've been doing this for 25 years now. And yes, I've worked on dogs, cats, horses, donkeys, that kind of thing, birds. Where I used to live in Ohio, the neighbor had peacocks, and the peacocks would come over and I do Reiki for them for a little bit. I've worked on a guinea pig. But since I moved to Colorado, so the house we picked when we moved here, 5 minutes from my driveway to the driveway of the Colorado Wolf and Wildlife Center, which is my heaven on earth. And so wild animals have always had a special place in my heart. So being able to do energy work on wolves and coyotes and foxes of all different, subspecies, just incredible. The online class so recently I took an online animal Reiki class, and one of our exercises as part of the class was what I told you about, Deb, was sending Reiki to animals at a zoo in California. And while they were on the webcam, so it was so cool because we could see the relaxation responses. We could see how the animals were rhinos in an enclosure, huge animals. And you could see them, some sat down if they were standing, some were already laying it down and they kind of flopped onto their sides. It was just the coolest thing to watch. So we could see all of that. We worked on jellyfish in a tank. So there's these multiple jellyfish just floating around in this tank. And we set a zone where we were focusing the energy, and you could see them floating in and out of the energy. And it was just incredible. So I am unbelievably excited to be able to provide distance Reiki for some of the wild ones at zoos and sanctuaries, and really looking forward to being able to do that.
Wow. So you've had many experiences, but is there an experience that has stuck out for you as maybe one of the most interesting that you've had that you can share?
Probably, gosh, going back to one of my very first animals that I worked on, a little Chihuahua that was rescued from a breeding facility. She was picked on by the other dogs in her enclosure that they were all stuffed in there together. So a backyard breeder that wasn't really considering the needs of the animals. So this dog was rescued out of their situation, and she got into a loving home. She had lost one eye as part of from being beaten up. And so she already had lost an eye and went into this loving home. This woman had multiple dogs. And unfortunately, the one day, one of the terrier mixes grabbed this little dog around the neck and shook her. And she was paralyzed from the neck down. She had, big holes in her neck. And the vet pretty much recommended euthanasia. But the guardian who was taking care of her said, no, she still wants to live. This is when I was working with Dr. Fisher. So she found us, called our office. And I got the chance to work with her and do a few sessions before she could get in to see the doctor. And oh my goodness, she was within 3 sessions, she was up and walking. Her tail was wagging. She had normal bowel and bladder function. It was incredible. And even after I moved to Colorado, anytime I would go back to Ohio to visit family, I would always make sure I stopped to see her and give her a complimentary session. And she had several more years of happiness with her person that she loved. So that was pretty cool.
That is cool. And you must have experiences. Like Barbara's all getting all warm and gooey there. When you said peacock, she was like, what? Because I get to watch everyone's face. It's like, what? Okay. So have you come up against, and is there misconceptions about animals having emotions? I mean, you talk about jellyfish and people are like, what? So do you come up against that, or what is that?
Yeah, that is something that has been disputed for quite a while. And, science is now catching up. They're doing studies, and scientific researchers are observing grief and fear and empathy and other complex emotions in animals, especially animals that associate in groups like elephants and wolves and dogs and mice, primates, because they have to rely on one another to survive. So they kind of need to know, how the others are feeling. And, just as an example, there was a man named Lawrence Anthony, and he founded an elephant reserve in Africa. And he had the reputation of being able to comfort the elephants and keep them safely on the reserve. So when he died suddenly, the elephants traveled to his home every night for a period of time as if they were paying their respects. I mean, they all came and stood outside of his home. There was also a study done with rats, and one rat is, soaking in water. The other rat, if he pushes a lever, his friend will be freed and be able to get to a dry area. But in order to do that, the treat is not going to drop if he pushes that lever. And every time that rat pushed that lever to save his friend. So there's more and more studies being done, and there are a lot of, different opinions on that. I think they are sentient beings who have a divine purpose just like we do. And so, but that's my opinion.
Okay, we'll take that science. I know that we because we've chatted quite a bit. And you said something that I was like, oh, I think it'd be interesting. When people hire you, all of a sudden it saves their family money. And I was like, because people see these things that we do, whether it's a retreat or a massage for ourselves, or they see it as an expense, like, oh, well, we're going to bring her in. So how does it save people money?
Well, it's, when it comes to wellness, I've always had the viewpoint that when it comes to your health, you either pay now or you pay later. And if you pay later, a lot of times it's a greater cost. So I noticed that with my animals, by doing this work for them, I was able to save some money, because basically, we are all energy beings living in a sea of energy. And when our energy system becomes disrupted, or if there's a blockage and it's not flowing as it should, that can eventually manifest as a physical dis-ease. Or in our pets, it can be an undesirable behavior, like my cat that used to be outside the box all the time. So by restoring and maintaining that optimal energy flow, releasing the stress, to me, that is going to naturally achieve that optimal wellness. It's going to keep issues at bay. And, I like to say to people, would you rather, just ask yourself, would you rather do this wellness care or wait until the disease or the unwanted behavior presents itself, and then you deal with that? What value would you place on less stress, improved health and vitality, quality of life for you and your pet, an improved bond between the two of you? What value do you place on that? Yes, you can save money with fewer costly vet bills and medications and things like that. But to me, the most important thing is that better quality of life, less stress, more peace, and a deeper bond with your pet. And to me, that's priceless.
Wow. Well said, touche. I know that I mentioned a little earlier, and I'm going to throw this at you because you didn't talk much about it, but just so people know, because, the beautiful thing about talking or sharing is what happens after, and we're all going to talk and share, and we've all been, people make an impression upon us, and then we might see a situation, and not before meeting you did it ever occur to me that when there was, something happened in the community, look at, we've all had things happen in our communities, whether it's like, the water's too high, or, I live in Vancouver where we are in the summertime. I think we've, have 200 fires a summer and things like that, and animals get displaced. Tell us a little bit more about that, like going in and animals having the same experience or stress. Like, it's never occurred to me till I talked to you, like, that's right, animals get displaced. So talk a little bit about that.
So the beautiful thing about energy work is that it can be done at a distance. So I've helped animals in other states. So what I often do is just send Reiki to the situation, and that includes the animals and the people. And, rescues have a big chunk of my heart. So the wild ones have half and the rescue animals have the other half. But just, those that are rescued out of bad situations, whether it's a disaster, whether it's hoarding or abuse or neglect, all of those situations, rehoming multiple times, all of these situations are traumatizing for animals. And I love how Reiki can help them to release that trauma and move forward. So my personal goal, what I would love to see in this world, is an army of Reiki masters, Reiki practitioners going into shelters, going into disaster areas, and working on these animals to give them the opportunity for a good home.
And I know that you have gone into fire halls, that you've been hired in fire halls by the chief to come in and talk so that people are aware, and just, the forces, the ones that are on the ground first, right? That see these animals in distress. And so, that's amazing. That's amazing. Julie, I'm going to pass it over to you a little bit. And do you have a question for Beth, or would you like to?
Well, no, but because you know how you get that sense of familiarity, right? And so Beth starts talking and I start looking at her link. And Beth, you and I met on a Zoom a long, long time ago. And I think it was this, the state of the, so nothing ever happens by chance, right? And I'm like, yeah, I got 3 rescue dogs. One of them, is having some, health concerns and stuff right now. And I'm like, guess who's getting a call from me, right? But I remember you just having that passion when I met you several years ago, right? And I think it was newer that you were exploring into. It wasn't new that you were doing it, but new as to how you were turning it into a business, right? And we just had such a great conversation, and I'm really glad to see you here today, and that you're following your purpose and your passion, your heart, because it really shines through.
Yes. And Julie, I remember our conversation, and you gifted me the book called The Magic, and it was life-changing. And you included a handwritten note, which really touched my heart. So yes, I remember you.
All right. I feel like Match.com.
But you know what? But thank you. Because I knew that I had sent you something. I just was drawing a blank as to what it was, but it goes back to our earlier conversation today about sending those thank yous, or, whenever I get the calling, and I've done it quite a bit, where a book that I've digested or whatever speaks to me. I keep copies of books on hand, and then I just drop them in the mail. And they're not always the books that I've been part of. There are other books that have made an impact in my life, and I want to share that gift. And sometimes it's those simple things that people come back. Thank you for sharing, Beth, years later, that tell you what an impact that it made. Because sometimes we never know, but it's a ripple effect, right? Because and again, that's all what we're here to do. We're all in this together. I loved somebody talking about before that it was Andy. We're all spiritual, having spiritual beings and or spiritual experiences in a physical body. That's really what we are. We're all really connected. And it's remembering that we're all on this journey together, and how can we help and support each other? I love it. This has been an amazing day, Deb. That's all I got to say.